Hello, everyone. This is Jim Lucy, Editor-in-Chief for Electrical Wholesaling and Electrical Marketing, with episode number 115 of the Today's Electrical Economy podcast series sponsored by Champion Fiberglass. Champion began producing epoxy fiberglass conduit and fittings in 1988, and in 1989 developed the first conduit from epoxy resins that had flame resistance and low smoke characteristics. This met the most stringent code and specifications. Today's episode will look at the largest construction projects now in the pipeline for three of the most active construction categories: data centers, hospitals, and airports. We'll also offer updates on several key weekly economic indicators to track: additional unemployment claims at the state level, rail freight car traffic, the Baker Hughes rig count, oil prices, and copper prices. Our thanks again to the folks from Champion Fiberglass for sponsoring this podcast for more than 100 episodes over the past 4 years. For the week ending March the 1st, the advanced figure for seasonally adjusted unemployment initial claims was 221,000. That's a decrease from 21,000 from the previous week's unrevised level of 242,000. The 4-week moving average for claims was 224,250, an increase of 250 from the previous week's unrevised level of 224,000. The U.S. unemployment rate was 4.1% in February. That's up 0.1% from January. So far, we have not seen evidence of all the layoffs in the government sector that occurred over the last couple of weeks, but we'll be watching that closely. As we talk through some of the other indicators on a weekly basis, we are seeing some sign of weakness, but not in a real dramatic way. To some degree, we're seeing a bit of a wait-and-see attitude with companies as they try to figure out what's really going to happen with tariffs. In the most recent data for the week ending March the 1st, 4 states had a decrease of unemployment of at least 1,000. Massachusetts saw a drop by 3,989, now sitting at 5,267. Rhode Island was down 2,003, now sitting at 987 claims, and Michigan was down 1,932. Illinois was also down 1,009. Only 2 states had initial unemployment claims of more than 1,000 for the week ending March the 1st. New York had claims of 15,628. Its claims were up to 30,166. And Texas had claims of 1,606, now sitting at 16,147. An interesting leading economic indicator for the overall U.S. economy is freight rail traffic. It's a measure of the amount of raw materials and finished goods being shipped by rail. The best source for the state is the American Association of Railroads, or AAR. It publishes its data weekly at www.aar.org. For the week ending March the 1st, total U.S. weekly rail traffic was 508,531 carloads and intermodal units. That's up 5.4% compared with the same time last year. Through the first 9 weeks of 2025, total combined U.S. traffic on the freight level was 4,305,612 carloads and intermodal units, and that is an increase of 3.7% compared to last year. As we mentioned, this is one of the indicators we want to watch closely, and if there's any sign of a real slowdown, it'll show up pretty fast in freight car traffic and intermodal units, and as you can see, nothing happening quite yet. When talking freight traffic, I did see several key categories that slip into the red over the past 2 weeks. Metallic ores and metals are down 9.1% year over year. Coal was down 5% year over year, and motor vehicles and parts were down 4.1% year over year. Non-metallic minerals are also down 3.2%. On the bright side, total intermodal units, and that's a big number to be watching, they were up 8.5%. There were 3 categories in the 3% range. Total traffic up 3.7%, farm products, excluding grain and food, up 3.6%, and petroleum and petroleum products, which it has tended to be a very strong category, is up 3.3%. If you track the oil market, you're probably familiar with the Baker Hughes rig count. It tracks the oil and gas rigs that are operating. This data is available by state, by basin, and nationally at www.rigcount.bakerhughes.com. This slide gives you an idea of the largest oil and gas deposits. It gives you a good sense of just how many of the large oil plays are in Texas and Oklahoma, and how big an area the Marcellus gas region covers in Pennsylvania, Ohio, and parts of West Virginia. The Baker Hughes rig count has held fairly steady over the past 2 weeks. It just showed a decrease of 1 rig to 492 rigs. That is a 30 rig drop from this time last year. Oklahoma is the one state among the major oil producing states that's ahead of last year. It's up 8.9% compared to 2024 in March. On a basin level, the nation's largest basin, the Permian, is down 2.9% to 304 rigs. It accounts for 51% of all the drilling activity. Oil prices have taken a real hit over the past week or so, most likely as a result of concerns over tariffs and the geopolitical concerns with Ukraine and Russia. The current price of West Texas Intermediate crude oil, or WTI, on Friday the 7th was $67.05. When WTI slips under $7 per barrel, it hasn't seen that level since late December 2024. Economists like to call copper pricing Dr. Copper because he's the leading economic indicator for future activity since copper is used in so many industries. The construction business is among the leading markets for copper because of its use in wire and cable and copper plumbing pipe. Figuring out copper pricing right now is particularly tricky, particularly if the copper tariffs that have been talked about really do come into effect. Current price for copper as of Friday, March 7th is $4.71 per pound, and that spent most of the past month at $4.50 per pound. Following President Trump's address to Congress last week, John Gross, the president and publisher of the Copper Journal, said that the COMEX prices spiked more than 20% the following day. Gross said in the Copper Journal that we've only had 2 daily price increases of this magnitude over the past 18 years. The last one occurred on November 4th, 2022, when the price of copper rose 26%, ostensibly in response to a sharp fall in the dollar. Copper prices have historically not stayed over the $4.50 per pound level where they are right now for very long, and it's going to be really interesting to see how the copper deals with tariffs and global uncertainties, and particularly the heightened tariffs with China, which has quite a stockpile of copper. Now let's take a look at 3 project areas that have seen significant activity over the past few months: data centers, airports, and hospitals. When you look at the Census Department data for the value of new construction through December, you see that data centers were up 46.4% in 2024, and airport was up 9.6%. They're 2 of the most active categories, and their growth dwarfs the 2.6% increase in overall private construction. To no one's surprise, large data center projects were the most numerous and are growing at an unprecedented rate. They're getting bigger all the time. We found online posts about 14 new projects entering the pipeline from 2024 through March 2025, and 9 of them were valued at $1 billion or more in total construction value. Because many developers don't announce the construction value of these projects, there could easily be double that number of projects at the $1 billion mark. The biggest project in the news recently is Meta's $10 billion data center campus planned in Richland Parish, Louisiana. It's notable for not only the 2 gigawatts it's expected to consume when all built out, but also because Meta is committed to adding 1,500 megawatts of new renewable energy construction through the local utility Entergy's Go Zero initiative. A report at Data Center Frontier said this renewable project would also include several gigawatts of nuclear generation capacity by the early 2030s. Many of the data centers in this table, and also in the electrical markets construction database, are operated by Amazon, Google, Meta, Microsoft, and other tech firms. And according to a recent Wall Street Journal energy citing Synergy Research Group, these companies now operate 445 data centers in the U.S. and have 249 additional in the pipeline. Let's take a look at some of the largest projects in the slide here. The biggest project, and this is a combined project with over $500 billion. That's what we've heard was announced in the White House in January, where OpenAI, SoftBank, and Oracle announced their Stargate data center expansion. Some of these were already underway, and they do cover a number of different states. That was talked about quite a bit, and it would be huge to see if any of these come to pass. We already mentioned the $10 billion Meta project in Richland Parish, Louisiana. So large number 2, a couple of data centers being built in South Carolina's Dorchester County. That's Google data centers at $3.3 billion. In Abilene, Texas, there's a $2.3 billion data center. It's going to put out to consume 206 megawatts data center. That's being financed by Blue Owl Capital, Crusoe Energy Systems, and Primary Data Infrastructure. Financing was announced in January 2025. A $2 billion data center by the CIM Group, Nova Data. That's a 175 megawatt data center in West Jordan, Utah. Construction loans approved during this month. Also being built in Virginia, the hotbed for all the data centers. I believe it's 70% of all data centers in Virginia. It's an enormous amount. $1.6 billion. It's called the Powerhouse 95 Data Center in Fredericksburg, Virginia. It entered a planning stage in December 2024, according to Dodge Construction Network. Also published by Dodge Construction Network, breaking ground in November 2024 in Ridgeland, Mississippi, as AWS's Amazon data center. It's $1.4 million in total construction. The Brambleton Data Center Park at Tech Park in Ashburn, Virginia, entered the planning stage 2024. That's $1 billion data center. And the other $1 billion project that we have is actually in Kansas City, not very far from where I'm located. It's the former Kansas City Star building. It's the Patmos data center. It's a 100 megawatt project, and plans were announced in November in 2024. When you look at all the data center spending and the contract value, the closest estimate I have for electrical construction needs for being part of that, it's about 20% you could figure, which is very high. It's quite a bit higher when you think of the rule of thumb for 10% of a total construction project being accounted for by electrical materials. It seems like almost every airport you travel through these days is under construction with $1 billion construction project. There's a whole lot of new projects being planned and underway. Let's look at a couple of the larger ones in the next slide. In Dallas's Fort Worth Airport, or DFW, $1.6 billion project broke ground in front of 2024. In Tampa, project going to be underway in December at $1.5 billion project. Also in Nashville, underway, $1.5 billion expansion. That's Nashville's International Airport's New Horizons expansion project. In Sacramento, underway, $1.3 billion project. Denver's International Airport Great Hall project, also underway, $1.3 billion project. In San Antonio, a new terminal building there, $1.28 billion project. Construction got underway 2024. The Norfolk Airport Transform ORF project, another $1 billion project. We've got a couple of smaller ones too. Dulles, a new retrofit of the concourse out there in Loudoun County, $500 million. Logan Airport has a project expected to start this quarter, $450 million. Logan Terminal Improvement by Skanska, adding 5,000 new parking space garage there. Work to start this quarter. And I just got a kick out of this other project in Austin. There's a parking garage, just a parking garage, 7,000 spaces, $250 million project right there. While hospitals have not shown this type of growth in U.S. Census Department data and were only 4.8% up through 2024, there has still been an impressive amount of planning and construction activity in recent months. Let's take a look at some of the largest projects. The biggest one that I was able to find, and this is in the planning stages in February 2025, according to ENR, or Internet News Record magazine. It's a $3 billion project in Camden, New Jersey, the Cooper University Healthcare Hospital expansion. Another big one, well over $1 billion, $1.6 billion, broke ground in December 2024, the Lyndon B. Johnson Hospital replacement. There's a $1 billion project in Billings, Montana. I don't think they see that $1 billion project all that often, but this is a big one. Plans were announced in November for the Intermountain Health St. Vincent Regional Hospital. We saw a very large project at Lakewood, Washington, broke ground in October, according to the Seattle Times, a Western State Health Psychiatric Facility, $947 million. In Palmetto, Florida, underway February 2025, about $548 million. The Baycare Hospital's Manatee project, according to the Business of Preserver, Florida website. And in Easton, Maryland, breaking ground in October, that $540 million project, the University of Maryland Shore Regional Medical Center. Again, that's in Easton, Maryland. The other ones, projects over $400 million in Fort Myers projects underway in February. The Lee Health Fort Myers project, $481 million project. That was actually a project that was pictured in the previous slide. And in Sarasota Memorial Hospital project, Northport, underway February 2025, $450 million. And in Colorado Springs, an expansion entered the planning stage in January 2025, $407 million. That wraps up our presentation today. We'll be trying to keep an eye on these weekly indicators very closely over the next couple of weeks and months with all the uncertainty in the economy right now. But you can count on us to provide you with the leading indicators that would seem to have the most impact on the electrical market. And thanks again to the folks from Champion Fiberglass for sponsoring us. As I mentioned, this is episode number 115, and they've sponsored them all the way back, going back 4 or 5 years. If there's any large projects that broke ground recently that I missed, please send them along and contact me at jlucy@Endeavor Business Media, B2B. Our next podcast will be on the 24th of March. Before that, actually next week, I'll be going to be at Little Education Light Show for a day. If you're over there, trying to flag me down, we'll be kind of racing from booth to booth to catch a couple of folks with new products there. But until our next podcast, stay healthy, be happy. We'll look forward to talking with you then.